Hello and welcome, I'm Abyss from Killjoy Gaming. We are back in Ranked with another deck demo. The deck demo today is none other than the recycling pastries themselves, Madolche. Without further ado, let's get into the deck profile. These wonderful pastries love to recycle themselves and make sure they have no monsters in the grave. As such, we do not have any Ash Blossoms or Maxies in this deck. We'll start off with a Psy-Frame Driver, a vanilla monster that you need for this next card. Psy-Frame Gear Gamma. Cannot be normal summoner set, must be special summoned by a card effect when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control no monsters. Quick effect. You can special summon both this card from your hand and Psy-Frame Driver from your deck or graveyard, and if you do, negate that activation, and if you do that, destroy that monster. During the end phase, banish the face-up monster special summoned by this effect. One of the odd hand traps in this deck, we are, due to the lack of Ash and Maxi, we need something to interact with our opponent. This is very much a going second deck, but it excels at going second. Next, we have two copies of Madolche Hootcake. If this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, by your opponent's card, this is by battle or card effect, shuffle this card into the deck. You can target one monster in your graveyard, banish it. If you do, special summon one Madolche monster from your deck, except Madolche Hootcakes. You can only use this effect of Madolche Hootcakes once per turn. You are almost always getting Messengelato. We will talk more on him when we get there. Madolche Magellan. Spellcaster effect. If this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card and sent to the graveyard, shuffle this card in the deck. This is what all the main deck Madolches have as an effect. I will skip over it from here on out. When this card is normal or flip summon, you can add one Madolche monster from your deck to your hand. This usually adds whatever you need to, your two starters being Angelian Pudding Sasor. Now for Madolche Messengelato. Skipping over the effect all Madolches have. When this card is special summoned, add one Madolche spell or trap from your deck to your hand. The Madolche spell and traps are either your field spell Chateau, Ticket, Salon, or Promenade. More on them later. But you must, to get the spell and trap search, you must have a face-up Madolche Beast, aka Hootcake. To activate and resolve this effect. Next we have our other playmakers. Usually this is your worst of the three starters, but Angeli is one of the better ones. You contribute this card to special from one Madolche monster from your deck. If you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle, but shuffle into the deck during the end phase of your next turn. You can only use this effect of Madolche Angeli once per turn. And then finally it has the effect all Madolches have. Now you're either getting your Playmaker Pudding Sasor, which is the #1 Playmaker in this deck, or you're grabbing a Hootcake as an extender. Madolche Pudding Sasor, the effect all Madolches have. You can only use each of the following effects of Madolche Pudding Sasor once per turn. If you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can special summon one Madolche from your hand or deck, except Madolche's Pudding Sasor, and if you do, reduce its level by 1. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn, except for Madolche monsters. This deck is Xenolocks, which is very important, due to the extra deck. Most of the time, you will not go into any of these other extra deck monsters. I recommend replacing them with extra copies of this. I do not have more copies of this, so yeah. But the thing you're always searching off of Madolche Pudding Sasor is Madolche Pudding Cest, because it reduces it to a level 4, and this card gains an effect when this is a material. Now for Madolche Pudding Cest. Gains 800 attack and defense, but you have no monsters in your graveyard. If this card is in your possession, this is the Madolche effect. After damage calc, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can target one card your opponent controls, destroy that target. Again, this is just used as a combo extender. I've seen it. I've used it all of like twice in its actuality. And it's also a hard brick being a level 5. Well, soft brick, because you can't special summon it out of your hand with Pudding Sister. We are running 3 Kaijus as board breakers. Anything that can stick onto the field to break your opponent's board is great for us. That does not put a monster in the grave. Special summoning Kaiju does not do that. Nibiru being the same way. But to read the Kaiju effect, sorry, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in attack position by attributing one of your opponent's monster. If your opponent controls a Kaiju, you can special summon this card from your hand in attack position. You can only control 1 Kaiju monster. And then the Kaiju effect, but we don't do Kaiju counters. Nibiru, the big boy himself during the main phase. If your opponent normals or special summons 5 or more monsters this turn, quick effect, you can triple you as many face-down monsters on the field as possible. If you do special summon this card from your hand, then special summon 1 primal token Rocklight level 11 question mark to your opponent's field. This token's attack defense becomes the combined original attack and defense of the attributed monsters. You can only use this effect of Nibiru Primal Being once per turn. Yes, we do have ways out the token. Raigeki is a good one. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls, but we have more in the extra deck. Upstart Goblin, draw 1 card, then your opponent gains 1,000 life points. You really don't have problems OTKing, we just needed to thin the deck a little bit. Dark Ruler no more, negate all the effects of face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of the turn. Also, for the rest of the turn, this card resolves, your opponent takes no battle damage. New player can activate monster effects in response to the activation. You just need board breakers, like I said. Not being able to run Ash Blossom or Maxi hurts. But you outgrind your opponent, so this damage blank means nothing. Madolche Chateau. When this card is activated, shuffle all Madolche monsters in your graveyard into the deck. All Madolche monsters in the field gain 500 attack and defense. Yes, that does make a difference. If a monster in your graveyard will be returned to the deck by an effect of a Madolche monster, you can add to your hand. Yes, you can add Kaijus and Nibiru back to your hand. And or destroyed Gammas. With this effect. Next we have Madolche Ticket. If another Madolche card you control or in your graveyard is added to your hand or shuffled into your deck, main deck specifically, that does come up because you can recycle your extra deck monsters. I'm clicking on the wrong card. Add one Madolche monster from your deck to your hand, and if you control a variant Madolche monster, you can special summon a monster from your deck in attack position instead of adding it to your hand. You can only use the effect of Madolche Ticket once per turn. This is another combo extender. You usually add or special summon whatever you need to keep your plays going. Whether it be a level 4 monster or a hoot cake. Moving on, Madolche Salon. We run 2 of these, and for good reason. During your main phase, you can normal summon 1 Madolche monster in addition to your normal summoner set. This gives you an extra normal summon. You can only gain this effect once per turn. If another Madolche card you control in your graveyard is added to your hand or shuffled into your main deck, by a card effect, set one Madolche spell or trap from your deck except Madolche Salon. You can only use the effect of Madolche Salon once per turn. You are normally setting either Ticket, Chateau, or Promenade depending on what you need at that moment. 1 called by the grave because I don't know 2. Target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it until the end of the next turn. Its effects are negated, as well as activated effects and effects of monsters on the field with the same original name. Cross out because most decks take Ash and Maxi, and I don't want a brick. Clear 1 card name, banish clear card from your main deck, and if you do, negate its effect as well as the activated effects and effects on the field with cards with the same original name until the end of this turn. You can only activate 1 crossout designator per turn. And we are running 3 evenly matched because this deck, as I keep saying, outgrinds your opponent. That is the goal. At the end of the battle phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you, you can make your opponent banish cards from their field face down so they control the same number of cards as you do. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. I repeat, this is a blind second deck, so you're running all the blind second tools. Infinite Impermanence. Target your biggest staple card in this deck, as you're running 3 of it. Target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn. If this card was set before the activation on the field at its resolution for the rest of this turn, all other spell and traps effects in this column are negated. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. And then you're searchable. Negate. Target one face-up card your opponent controls and one Madolche monster you control or in your graveyard, negate the effect of the opponent's card until the end of this turn. If you do, return that monster to your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard to target one Madolche Xyz monster you control and attach one Madolche monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard to it as materials. You can only use one Madolche Promenade effect per turn. Only once that turn, you will be recycling these back into the deck to reuse them. Now on to the extra deck. Utopic Future and Utopic Draco Future. I don't need to read this effect because you just use this to get into this card, so this card is always treated as a Utopic Future card. You can also exceed some of this card by using an F-Zero Utopic Future. You control as materials. Transfer the materials of this card can't be destroyed by battle card effect. Once per turn, when an opponent activates the monster effect quick effect, you can attach one material from this card, negate the activation, then if that monster is on the field, gain control of it. I never use this card. Again, you're usually Xeno locked. Madolche Queen Tiramisu, the scariest going second card in your deck. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, then target 2 Madolche cards in your graveyard. Specifically, this says cards, which means you can recycle the traps and destroy spells. Shuffle them into the deck. Also after that, shuffle cards your opponent controls into the deck. This does not target. This is non-targeting, non-destruction removal. Up to the number of Madolche cards returned. Also, this is a soft once per turn. We run 3 of these. I have shuffled 6 cards into the deck before. Next, we are running 3 copies of Madolche Teacher Glass Souffle. 2 level 4 Madolche monsters. Quick effect, you can detach one material from this card to target one Madolche monster on the field this turn. That face-up monster is unaffected by monster effects except its own. If a Madolche card is sent to the graveyard while this card is on the field, except during the damage steps, you can shuffle 2 cards from the graveyards into the deck. This is any card you want, which means this is how you recycle your hand traps if you want. And your going second tools. But at that point, normally you're just recycling more Madolches, or anything in your opponent's grave that you don't like. You can only use each effect of Madolche Teacher Glass Souffle once per turn. Finally, the boss. Madolche Pudding Cess Chocolate a la Mode. 2 level 5 Earth monsters. That doesn't matter. You can also XC summon this card by using rank 4 lower Madolche XCs. You control as material, transfer the materials to this card. Once per turn, you can target one Madolche card in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck. Again, this does not specify if it's a monster or not. So you can do spells and traps. While this card has a Madolche Pudding Cess as material, when a Madolche card in your graveyard is shuffled into the main deck, that is very important. Which means spells and traps do trigger this. Except during this damage shift, you can attach one material from this card to special summon one Madolche monster from your deck in attack position or face down defense position. This will always be face up attack position because we do not run any face down Madolches. Because they kinda are bad. 1 copy of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. I've never summoned this card, but once per turn, if an XC monster battles this turn, you can XC summon this card on top of it. Using 1 XC monster you control as material, transfer them to this card. Quick effect, attach your materials from this card, send all the cards from the field to the graveyard once per turn. If another card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, attach 1 card from your hand deck or extra deck to this card as material. Again, I don't use this. Finally, the last Madolche card and the last card that really matters. I probably won't cover the last 2 because we don't use them. Madolche Fresh Sistart. 2 Madolche monsters. When this card points to a Madolche monster, Madolche spells and traps you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. That is very important. Also, neither players can target them with card effects. This protects your face-up spells and traps and field spell, which is amazing. And has a very relevant effect after that. If this card on the field would be destroyed by battle or card effect. You can shuffle one Madolche monster from your graveyard into the deck instead, allowing you to further recycle your stuff. Now with that out of the way, what are you looking at for deck costs? For this deck, you're looking at 630 URCP. I know that's a lot, but 95% of that is stable cards. Non-stable UR is about running you 270 CP. Where this thing really hits you though is SRCP, with a whopping 600 SRCP and 450 of that being non-stable cards. You're also running a 390 RCP, and finally you have one normal, which is Driver, which is kind of funny. Now with the deck cost out of the way, on to the games. As I've been smart the past few times, I've already done these games. We will be watching the clips, and I will be commentating about how bad I did, most likely. Now, if I remember correctly, this deck is against Numeron. Now, I hate seeing Pudding Cess in my hand, because it's a soft garnet. But we easily get it out of hand and get into Glass Souffle. And we want that hand jelly out of the deck, getting us a Hoot Cake, going into Chocolate a la Mode, shuffling that back into the deck, and special summoning a... I actually messed up here, too. I activated that before I went into the link, so I couldn't trigger Chocolate a la Mode a second time to get another negate. Sad, but true. Now we're going to be Kaiju, sadly. When they have just as many going second tools as you. The only problem is we have 3 monsters. With 2,000 or more attack. Which means I will live this. I'll get that Hoot Cake back to my hand. And get a combo starter for next turn. Now I hate seeing this in my hand, so it goes back to my deck. Oh, my bad, I forgot. Numeron has to chain its effect in activation to mine. And we are taking a lot of damage. But we are not out of this yet. Thankfully, they did not have the card that ends me. Now Chaos Gate banishes all monsters on the field, but I didn't have any monsters after that. And I drew a nip. It's gonna max C, but it's not gonna matter at this point. This is where it'd be great to have more than one Chocolate a la Mode, but I can make it to lethal without it. It's time to see the terrifying power of Tiramisu. And into the deck. You go to the hand you go. You always get to choose. So I keep my garnets in my deck. When I can. I'm gonna set my negate for next turn. And they're gonna scoop. Because I can negate their field spell. And now for match number 2. This will be against agents. And I opened every hand trap I could ever want. They're gonna herald that putting it in my graveyard, which makes technically putting Cessor dead. Which isn't great. And they're gonna summon all those. Be gone! Nibiru! And the last card had to be Monster Reborn. They just played through a Gamma and a Nibiru. But they went first. Next, they play their Sanctuary in the Sky to destroy my Nibiru with their weird card. I don't know why they didn't banish it, but we've opened Ticket and it's only a 1 of this deck. Isn't great. I'm gonna go for the Pudding Cessor, Pudding Cess combo. That's another way to get Pudding Cessor out. Let's just go from Angeli into it. We're gonna Tiramisu. Getting a Hood Cake, using Hood Cake to banish the Nibiru spent. Get Salon for the extra normal. Into a Sistart. Going into the Chocolate Ala mode to keep extending. And then I get to search for whatever I want. Which is another Hoot Cake. And then we activate the field spell, making our things even bigger. Getting the negate to my hand, setting it, using the extra normal to make a second Tiramisu. Then using that Tiramisu to shuffle the token. Getting the Pudding Cess back into my deck, and then adding the Pudding Cessor to my hand for extra plays next turn. And that's game. As you can see, this deck is meant to outgrind and outlive your opponent. Well, there you have it. This has been Madolche's in Ranked, the deck demo. I thank you all for watching, and I shall see you next time. Peace.